Coming from my experience of traveling out of a car and living out of a car and living in an RV, which I currently do, and never traveling in an RV, but I've stayed at RV parks, I've stayed at campgrounds, and in my experience, traveling in a car is the simplest, most efficient, and lightest way to travel. And you have a lot of options if you want to increase comfort. Remember when you're traveling out of a car, you don't have to sleep in the car. You could always rent a hotel because you didn't pay the purchase price of an RV. You're not paying for the extra gas an RV would consume. And you don't have to stay at a campground or RV park, which, some of the bigger RVs, you're not always to stealth camp. So you're saving a lot of money when you travel out of a car, especially if you already own the car. So, and you didn't buy one just to travel out of. So you don't have to stay at a hotel, but you have that option because you have saved so much money just by not choosing to travel in an RV. An RV is extra comfort. It's pretty much like a tiny home on wheels. But with extra comfort comes the extra upfront cost of the purchase, of the fuel, of the campground stays, etc., the things I just mentioned. So it's like, from a cost perspective, it's very hard to justify traveling in an RV unless you do it for a long period of time. Anything in life is a return on investment. College, in one sense, is a return on investment. You go to school for, let's say you go to college for 4 years and you spend, $40,000, $50,000 worth of college loan debt. Now you have to, work a couple years to make more than you've borrowed. And you still have regular cost of food, of, soap, detergent, life, insurances, cell phone bills. So to pay back college, you got to pay for your regular life and you got to pay for that $40,000, $50,000 loan. So it doesn't, if you made $40,000 coming out of school, it's probably going to take you 5 to 10 years to pay that off if you didn't have anything else like kids and big other debts. So it's the same thing with an RV. It's like, you could say a new car would cost you 30, 40 grand, and an RV will cost you 80 to 100 grand if it's a motorhome. You can get a travel trailer for 20 or 30,000, a very cheap one, but you need something to tow it with, and that puts a lot of wear and tear on your car. And so when you figure your tow vehicle and your travel trailer, you're right at 40, 50 grand easy. So when you do all the numbers, it's like doing the numbers, for college or something. It's like, you have to do it for a period of time for there to be a return on investment. That's the financial aspect of it. Now, if financially you can afford to buy an RV, okay, because I always tell you guys, if you cannot financially afford to buy a car or an RV or a house, don't buy it. Why? Because if you have a dream, a passion to live more freer, to feel free, to feel adventurous, it's going to be very hard to do so when you're pinching pennies. You don't want to buy an $80,000, $100,000 Class B motorhome and have to stealth camp. If you want to still stealth camp, that's fine, but you don't want to have to, right? So you want to have that freedom in your mind that if you bought an RV, it's below your means. Because, the more you spend on an RV, the less you'll have potentially for the future for the home base, if that's something you desire. And if that's not something you desire, you just have to look at your long-term strategy. What does living in an RV full-time look like the rest of my life? Okay. Because you can get caught in a depreciating asset spiral. Even though I will recognize for the past few years, RVs have somewhat held their value because of inflation, not in proportion to what home values have done. And remember, when you see a used RV for sale on a lot, that's not what the owner of the RV sold it to the RV dealership got. That's marked up 20-40% based on what they traded in, what they got from the regular seller of that RV. So all that to say, when you're talking about the subject, should you travel out of a car or RV, one of the first things you have to analyze is, look, if you're traveling out of an RV, you're going to be putting a lot of wear and tear on it. And that's a lot of money invested. Okay. And I went through this mental exercise when I first started living in my car 5 years ago. And I came to the conclusion was, man, it's, especially if I have a vision of possibly purchasing a property down the road, that's a big upfront cost. It's a lot of traveling costs, and all eyes are on you when you have an RV with regards to stealth camping and stuff. So I said, not worth it at that point. Now, recently, when I bought a home base, I really debated, do I want to buy an RV? Now, I bought an RV, but it's mainly going to be stationary at an RV lot that I own, because I really came to the conclusion again, traveling in a car, it's just simpler. It's more cost effective, and I kind of feel more at peace buying property I own with an RV on it and traveling out of a car, because it's easier to maneuver, simpler to use. I struggle, with the Class B option. I kind of know I don't want to tow something. When you talk about traveling an RV, you have to ask yourself, do you want to tow something? If some people don't mind towing something, I don't want to tow something. The benefit of towing something is you tow the trailer. You tow the trailer. You drop it off, and you still have a regular car to drive. Okay. The negative is you got to tow something. And you can't stealth park because, it's not really proper to just leave a travel trailer in a parking lot and then go do your daily errands. The value of a motorhome, okay, and I'm mainly thinking Class B van motorhome, but you can think of anyone, is that, do you want to drive that every day, everywhere? For the Class B small van conversion, you may, but it is a different drive than a car. I know, because I drove a cargo van for a few years. And that's, again, a lot of wear and tear on a very expensive vehicle. It's exciting to think about living in a Class B, traveling in a Class B. A van basically is all we're talking about. But there's a lot of logistical things. And I don't want to overhype it, right? I mean, it could very easily be done, and you could try to do it cost effective. I mean, now with gas prices, and again, with the wear and tear you put it, it's not free, okay? Not at all. And you buy a very old Class B, you got to at least be very handy, because if you're not very handy and mechanically inclined, definitely the mechanic bills will kill you, okay? Then it's, in my opinion, not worth it. And I'm not that type of mechanical person, just not me. You got to know yourself. If you are, that's great, and that's something you want to do, that's fine. So, you go through this whole mental exercise, and you come to, well, I really don't want to tow anything. Then you come to the point, well, man, do I want to put that much wear and tear on a very expensive motorhome? And then you just go, oh my God, let me just travel out of a regular car, okay? And use that bigger percentage of money to own property that when I do want to stay stationary, it's in an area I want to be, and I kind of own some equity in land where my long term, if I ever get sick or have to get off the road, it makes sense. I mean, that's kind of my conclusion I came with. Just travel out of a car, and if you're going to live in an RV like I do, live stationary on a lot that you own. It's a tough call because it's balance. The most adventurous thing is say, no property, buy the RV and live on the road. And I've done that just without the RV. I did it in the car because it just did the math, did the logistics, and, I get it, though. I get why people do it. I mean, I get why people stop doing it. It's, it's an individual thing. Obviously your finances, your goals, your traveling style, your personality all play a part. But I would say definitely for beginners and definitely for the average person that doesn't have an extra 100 grand that they can just throw away, I would say travel out of the current car you have. Okay. Keep a home base, especially for those who are elderly or very low income. Do whatever you want. These are my opinions. If you do hit the road full time, through my experience and what I did, I'm not telling you something I didn't do, is just use the regular car you have, keep a job, pick up a side job, and don't buy anything. And just enjoy the freedom of the road. And then when you're ready to do something else, you'll have a better evaluation of the road and how you like to travel. That's my opinion on traveling out of a car versus RV and the thought process that I put into it that I want to share with you. Hopefully it helped. If it did, click that thumbs up. You want to give this video a super thanks, please click that super thanks. Click that blue join button if you'd like to join the unlimited access to my live feeds. Thank you to all my members. I'll see you next one.